Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our annual meeting. And I want to just speak to the fact we have a few people in the room here with us, and we have several people online with us in our first virtual annual meeting. Those of us that are in person, we are actually meeting in the Harper Recital Hall at the Roosevelt Center. And the Gregory T. Harper really inspires me because he had such a mission for performing arts in Red Lodge. So we're really fortunate to be trying out this space today and a very special occasion for us, which is our annual meeting. I just want to thank the staff and board for all joining together today in presenting this annual report. I think one of the most magnificent things about an event like this is that we get the chance to pause and really recognize all of the people, humans to humans, who have the opportunity to work together for the common good. And so that's what this real celebration is about, is all the lives that have intersected and brought these things to fruition of where we're at right now in this point in time. I think there is about 70 people joining us at this annual meeting this year, so I'm super excited about that. I was a little worried when it was going to be remote. We love having rooms full of people to work with. We're going to focus today on the activities and the accomplishments of 2020, and we are also going to focus on where we're headed in 2021. So you're going to see a little bit of bridging in the conversation of what we're talking about in the program, since nothing ends on a certain date, nothing begins again on a certain date. It stays sort of in perpetual motion for us. Some of the context that we're working in today is that normally we would be in a room together and everyone would have a copy of the printed annual report. So that's not the case today. What is going to happen is after the meeting, you're going to be sent a link of the annual report. We're going to be presenting parts of that annual report today, but really, please, a lot of time went into the annual report and it's very interactive. So I would like to thank Luke and Kat and Skylar and all the program people and all the community members that helped to make those videos that are in the electronic annual report available. And we won't be able to see those today. We're mostly going to see presenters, but please pause and take a look at that because you're going to love it. I wanted to also pause and help everyone to relax that, you know, we're doing a virtual meeting, and that means electronics and internet are involved. And so if there are glitches or things that are going on during that meeting, we're just going to proceed in the best way that we can. And I just know a lot of time has went into getting us to this point. So thank you for the hard work and all of the anxiety that sometimes comes with the unknown. The participants are muted for this event to help secure the internet connection. And so if you have any questions or comments, we're going to ask you to put those in chat. Kat will be monitoring chat. Some of those topics may come as part of the presentation that she'll relay those to me, and other parts of that may be answered immediately or soon thereafter the annual meeting presentation concludes. So we will address that in whichever way that we can. And I want to also prepare you for a variety of presentations today. So there's some of us that are live here in the recital hall, and then there are going to be people who are presenting remotely. And then we also have a video presentation of someone that was not available in this time slot. So again, I think it's really a celebration of all the different ways we figure out on how to come together. So it's pretty exciting times. Now, as part of our welcoming, we have some really special people in our community that have been working alongside us for many, many years. And so I would like to introduce Glory Mahan from the City Council. And it's my understanding that she's been part of the City Council since 2003. And of course, she's everything Red Lodge Rodeo and so many other things. So please welcome Glory Mahan.
Thank you, Tracy. You know, I really appreciate the fact that you've included the city in your annual meeting. We are so happy to be here and be part of this wonderful organization. When Tracy Timmons came to us, those many years ago, we were a bit skeptical. We had been asked to partner with other organizations in the community, and that was not a good outcome for us. So we did agree, fortunately, to partner with Tracy and her group. And boy, are we glad. We have partnered with the foundation on a number of projects, such as the workforce housing, public health, the pool endowment, Roosevelt Center, which as a kid, I went to school here, those many years ago. But specifically, when we've needed help with something, we have turned to the foundation, and they've always been there for us. Most recently, as an example, our city judge, Raphael, needed a venue to hold a trial. It was so many people were expected to be there that our facility at City Hall wasn't large enough. So where did he turn? The foundation. And not only was that first trial successful, but then he had a second trial, and he also used the Roosevelt Center. And who knows, we'll probably be using it a number of times again. Also, we have had opportunities to partner with the foundation on some fun things. For instance, the local Elks Lodge had an opportunity to obtain a $2,000 grant that had to be used for youth and literacy. What better for those two things than our library? We applied for the $2,000 grant and we got it. So then we arranged to have a fun time at the library itself to present the check and to welcome the community to come to that event. And there we were, all of us, at the library. And by the way, it was Dolly Parton's birthday that day, and she's the one who started the literacy program. And I got to announce that it was Dolly Parton's birthday. Thanks to Lonnie Bell, I heard it on the radio. So there we were, getting ready to have this wonderful event at the library. And I recalled having heard that there was somebody at the foundation who could do face painting. So I contacted the person, and two people showed up that day to do face painting for the kids who were there to help celebrate this $2,000 grant. And the kids were overjoyed. I had no idea how kids felt about getting their faces painted. But boy, they were lined up and patiently awaiting their turn. In fact, I think some of the adults were waiting for their turn too, although I didn't actually see anybody getting their faces painted. But it was a wonderful event for us. And because we were able to utilize personnel from the foundation, it was even better. I would like to thank Tracy Timmons, a highly qualified professional who started this for us, and her team, most specifically, Martha Brown and Marivette Labrie, because they were both on the city council at one time, and they know what we go through there. So they too are very, very much aware of how valuable the foundation is to this community. I can't imagine us being without it. And I'm hoping with all my heart that we won't ever have to be without it. So thank you, Tracy. Thank you to your team and all the professional people who step up to help the city of Red Lodge, the county of Carbon, and that helps the state of Montana. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Glory. I just appreciate all the partnership with the city. And it has been quite a road of experimentation and finding our way to really it's a natural partnership. So I agree and thank you. I would also like to welcome our esteemed Carbon County Sheriff, Josh McQuillan, to come up and visit a little bit about the expansion of the Community Foundation across the county and how we partner with Josh's office on some projects and helping people throughout Carbon County. So welcome, Josh.
Thank you. Tracy asked me just to stop in and talk maybe on a perspective at the county level as far as the foundation's related. As you know, Carbon County is about 2,100 square miles, the geographical area, and it's very diverse. You get outside of Red Lodge and you go to the valley or to the Joliet area. There's things that are different, very different. We started partnering with the foundation when I took over, and I can't remember when CARP first even became a discussion, but when George was here, he stopped at our office 3 years ago, and they were just trying to figure out how to get more out into the county. And transportation, we just literally started talking, and I think that was kind of where this all started. It was during that time, and to me, I think that's a huge benefit to Carbon County, seeing these vans, and we're getting the feedback even over in the Bridger area, the benefit that's going to have, and it's because of the foundation. And I really hope that this continues. They're in Joliet. I seen the van today. So great job on that. That's going to be an overall benefit for the county. Some of the other things we do is that Connect book. All these resources are available, but there was never one central point to be able to pull all that information in for county residents. And I think you guys had a big part in doing that. And I think George was part of that as well. And I got to meet George a lot that time. He was great. And I think you'd be very proud to see where some of his ideas are right now. And so then we take those books, we get them out through the counties, we help deliver things. We're throughout the county all the time. And then one of the more recent things that we're working with the foundation on is our deputies are starting a deputy association. And Tracy and our deputies are doing that. That's outside of me or the commissioners. And I think that's going to have an overall great impact for the sheriff's office and ultimately you as the people that we serve on some of the opportunities that's going to provide. So I think just, I'm not nearly as long-winded as the previous speaker, and she knows that. But, I think as your sheriff, that represents everybody throughout the county and tries to do a great job in getting throughout. And as a Joliet community member where I live at, I thank you for what you guys are doing, and hopefully we can continue to build on it. So thanks.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you for all the partnership across the county. And we know that you do hand out a lot of those Carbon County Connect directories, and it's nice that it's online, but in our county in rural America, I think having the printed books available for people has been very helpful. So thanks for all the ways that you're helping lead the way across the county and on both sides of the county. So I appreciate that. All right. I'm figuring out the clicker thing here. All right, so the next part of our meeting is more of the official part of the meeting. So I would like to introduce our wonderful chairperson of the board, which is Martha Brown. And Martha has been on the Community Foundation board since 2015, and she's been chair on the board for at least 5 years because she has been a very gracious partner. She's always an inspiration for me, and she is a vital supporter, always keeping in mind our mission, our vision, and the culture of the Community Foundation. And I really appreciate that about her. And she's going to open the official part of this annual meeting. So thank you, Martha.
Good morning. So I would like to add my welcome to the ones that you just received. We are especially appreciative of Councilperson Glory Mahan and our County Sheriff Josh McQuillan for being with us today. We're grateful for your leadership in our community and your support and partnership in the work that we do at the foundation. And it's wonderful to have so many of you join us today in person and via Zoom. For those of you that are not in person, it's kind of strange. We have a fairly small group here in person, but then we know we have all of you out there in Zoom land too. So glad you're all here. It's truly been my privilege to serve on the foundation board for the past 6 years. And it may seem longer, but I've really been board chair for 4 years. It does seem longer sometimes. Most of our board members are with us today, either in person or virtually. And you have a complete list of those folks in our annual report. This board is truly a group of dedicated and enthusiastic people who care very much about the success of the foundation and truly put the needs of our community first. So I want to thank our board members for always giving their time and their support to help us accomplish all of the things that Tracy's going to talk about a little bit later this morning. And speaking of Tracy, I want to especially thank her and the entire foundation staff. 2020 was a hard year, a challenging year for all of us, and required us to quickly learn and embrace new ways of doing things. And I will tell you that Tracy pivoted the entire foundation in the space of a few days to working remotely, to starting a COVID relief fund to help our neighbors who were most in need, to figure out what programs we could continue and what new ways had to be developed in order to manage all of the service and programs that our community expects. So you'll hear more from Tracy shortly about the many bright spots and the accomplishments in 2020, but I just want to tell all of you how very proud I am of Tracy and of the entire foundation staff for their work always, but especially in the amazing year of 2020. So now I get to lead us into the more some of the nitty gritty of our business part here, and we'll get through this fairly quickly and move on to the more fun parts. The foundation's bylaws state that the business to be conducted at our annual meeting of members is to include the election of directors, the presentation of the foundation's financial report, and any other matter requiring member approval. At this time, there are no additional matters in front of us requiring member approval other than those I just mentioned. The record date of the members eligible to vote today was March 8th, 2021, when written notice of the annual meeting was provided to 163 members. A quorum of 17 members, or 10% of the number of voting members, must be present to conduct the annual meeting. And I'm happy to say we have way more than our quorum present with us today. And so it is my task to officially open the business of the annual meeting. The secretary and the executive director submit that there were not any requests for proxy voting. The foundation's bylaws state that the board of directors shall consist of not fewer than 12 and not more than 17 voting directors. And the board chair, in consultation with the executive committee, determines the number of candidates to be placed in nomination and shall notify the governance and nominating committee. So I have determined the number of directors for the 2021-2022 period to be 15, an increase from 13 last year, to include 3 directors for re-election and 2 new directors, all for a 3-year term. The foundation secretary is to serve as secretary for the annual meeting. That's Steve Hansen. And so now I get to introduce Bill Foisey, who's joining us via Zoom. Bill was an outstanding member of our board for many years and currently serves as the chair of the governance and nominating committee for the board. And he's going to review our slate of candidates. Oh, Bill, I think you're on mute. Love technology. I think, Bill, if you can hear me, you're on mute.
How about that?
Now we can hear you. Thanks.
Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, okay, I'll be on my best behavior then.
Yes.
Okay,
please
I am
do.
Bill Foisey, Chair of the Governance and Nominating Committee. And the slate of candidates for director with biographical information was included in a link in the notice of the meeting. I don't know if everyone saw that, but in the meeting notice, if you clicked on a link, it took you to the information on the slate. So I'm going to review the slate, and they include, I'm going to do the existing board members first, so someone might have to scroll down on the members of the board. The first one is Martha Brown. She's the current board chair. She is up for re-election as a director. Now, Martha was named 2018 Citizen of the Year, sponsored by the Red Lodge Area Chamber of Commerce. She served 2 terms in the Red Lodge City Council with yours truly, and she helped found the Red Lodge Food Partnership Council. Second, Alan Schuyler. Alan is a current board member. He's up for re-election. Alan returned to Montana in 2008 after a 30-year career in oil permitting and compliance to manage the family farm. I think that's in Roberts. And he serves as a liaison to the Community Foundation as a representative of the Roberts Community Foundation. Okay, Kathleen Delahunty. She's a current board member. She's for re-election. Kathleen has lived in Red Lodge for over 35 years and worked with for-profit businesses and entrepreneurs in office management, human resources, and administration. She's also a member of the Red Lodge Roberts Ambulance District Board. Those are the 3 current directors up for re-election. We have 2 proposed new directors. One is Jackie Ogg. Jackie's a part-time resident of Red Lodge and worked for a decade in senior leadership role at the Greater Washington Community Foundation. In the District of Columbia, she has an understanding of how to support and complete important community initiatives. Chris Larash, nominee for new director. Chris works for Altana Federal Credit Union and has been an enthusiastic member of the Foundation's Workforce Housing Committee for several years. He has a passion for volunteering and providing service to others while inspiring others in the community to serve. And those are the 5 proposed nominees for the 5 positions that Martha has outlined. Okay, nominations of directors can be taken from the floor. However, any such nomination must be, number 1, a member of the foundation, and number 2, probably more importantly, who has agreed to be added to the slate of nominees. And so I'm going to request, are there any nominations from the floor? And I guess you would put that in chat or whatever. I'm going to declare going once, going twice, going 3 times. So since there are no nominations from the floor, Martha, I will report to the chair that the ballot and the slate of nominees for director meets the requirements for election. We do not need to have a written ballot, and that the 5 persons are now directors of the organization. So I will turn it back over to you, Martha.
Thank you, Bill. And so I would just congratulate each of our returning board members. I know myself, Kathleen, and Alan have all served multiple terms on the board, and it's a testament to their work and to the strength of the work of the foundation that they are ready and willing to sign up again. So thank you to them. And very, very excited to welcome Jackie and Chris to the board. They're going to bring such a wonderful wealth of experiences and different energies for us, and thrilled to have them as well. So then now I conclude that business part of our annual meeting, and will introduce Merv Coleman, who is a founding board member of the foundation, along with Mark Schubert. Merv is currently the vice chair of our board of directors.
Thank you, Martha. It is, first of all, it's just absolutely my pleasure to be on the stand in the Greg T. Harper Recital Hall. I used to do underclass school pictures on this very stage. And my kids went to school here as well. So it's my pleasure to be here. And it's just my absolute honor to provide the volunteer champions for 2021. And we have a great staff, we have a great board, but it's our volunteers that just absolutely make this place go. So our 2021 volunteer champions, Kobe Caston grew up in Billings, and like many Billings families, her folks had a cabin here in Red Lodge. They spent summers and many winter weekends here, and Kobe always knew she would live in Red Lodge. Eventually, the planets aligned and circumstances enabled her to fulfill her dream of living here full-time. Kobe wanted to help out as needed, and she jumped at the chance to take what is undeniably the most fun job at the Fun Run, serving as the Fun Run Moose. Using the athletic skills she learned as a cheerleader in high school, Kobe brought that wonderful brown furry costume to life. The best part was seeing the smiles on kids' faces during the drive on Broadway. That was on a bus provided by the buses of Yellowstone Preservation Trust. Kobe is a champion not only for the Red Lodge Area Community Foundation, but for all the gregarious moose everywhere. Jackie Ogg has spent part of every year in Red Lodge for a long time, and she truly loves our community. A few years ago, she had an idea. What about asking other part-time residents to participate more fully in supporting and building strength for community programs? Seems logical to her, but it was a novel idea for us. It turns out that Red Lodge has more than 1,000 second home owners, many of whom spend a great deal of time enjoying what this area has to offer. In 2019, Jackie initiated the part-time resident campaign, reaching out to folks like herself to ask for financial support for the important community work done by the foundation. Jackie spearheaded this effort again in 2020, and the campaign more than doubled the donations of the first year. Her passion for connecting with fellow part-time residents, and most important, following through on efforts to reach them, make Jackie this year's volunteer champion for fundraising. Thank you, Jackie. Sydney Erickson is a senior at Red Lodge High School, and she embodies that old saying that if you want something done, give it to somebody, give it to a busy person. Sydney has volunteered for more than 300 hours of service to her school, her community, and 4-H organization. Let me list some of the specific projects she's undertaken. Camp counselor, 4-H ambassador, club leader for local service projects like highway cleanup, and both setup and cleanup at the county fair. As a dedicated promoter for 4-H throughout the county. In her day job as a high school senior, Sydney has served as base camp leader for the freshman advisory group, as well as student leader for the program called High School Matters. She serves on the student council, and she helps plan and run events for students throughout the year. All that on top of her academic work. For keeping all these balls in the air and doing so much good, Sydney is our youth volunteer champion. Thank you, Sydney. Robert Butler, Sophia Bowie, Caleb Nell, and Elijah Lover are our youth volunteer champions. As sophomores, they started a project called Refills, Not Landfills, a straightforward idea that involved a lot of steps. They were determined to establish a water bottle filling station on Broadway. to reduce plastic waste by reducing our reliance on single-use plastic water bottles and also provide clean drinking water to the public. In 2018, these four attended the RYLA camp. That's the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. And they came home inspired to make a difference. They pooled the $50 that each received from the Rotary of Red Lodge and started to promote their project to a long list of businesses and organizations, City Council, Chamber of Commerce, Public Works Department, Garden Club, Carbon County Resource Council, Parks, Trees and Recreation Board, Green Team, and the Interact Club. These enterprising young people raised more than $14,000. And they won official approval for their project from 3 departments of the state of Montana: Environmental Quality, Labor and Industry, and Public Health and Human Services. As happens in any good effort, the group suffered some setbacks along the way. At one point, they had to change their desired location for the water station. But in the end, in May 2020, the group opened the water bottle filling station in its permanent spot on Pollard Hotel property next to the Bank of Red Lodge ATM. Despite COVID-19 restrictions, this team was able to hold a grand opening. Free and available to the public, the water station is a testament to the perseverance for these 4 young people who worked long and hard to fulfill their purpose. Robert, Sophia, Caleb, and Elijah, you are the youth volunteer champions. Thank you, guys. We reach out to another part of our beautiful state to honor the Helena Area Habitat for Humanity, represented by Jacob Kuntz, Mark Leland, Morgan Marks, Hope Azarata, Ruby Hawk, and Andrew Ray. Helena Habitat is our champion for resilient community. Despite the sometimes overwhelming challenges of 2020, our Helena Habitat partners remain dedicated to creating quality, affordable housing options for our community. Our Workforce Housing Steering Committee and Trust Montana had worked for more than a year on program development. Then the pandemic hit in full force. There was every reason to shut down, but the work continued. Thanks to the commitment and ongoing effort of these individuals, Jacob, Mark, Morgan, Hope, and Andrew, we broke ground on the first cycle of our owner-built housing program in July 2020. 3 hardworking local families have now found a path to home ownership. Our capacity for a future housing cycle is secured, and this innovative program now serves as a model for rural resort communities nationwide. Helena Area Habitat for Humanity is our champion for resilient community. Thank you. The full name of this champion is AmeriCorps National Civilian Community Corps Team Red One. To us, they're Red One, a team of energetic volunteers who came to help out for all sorts of community projects. Here's what Red Team One did at the Yellowstone Wildlife Sanctuary. Dismantled an old animal enclosure, planted 30 new trees, tended to 14 trees to revitalize enclosures and walkways, installed 400 feet of snow fencing to prevent snow pileup on roads and walkways, and cut and installed 1,000 feet of erosion tubes to prevent runoff and boost vegetation growth. Here's what Red One did to spruce up and maintain the foundation's shared services building. Weeded, demolished the tiles on the steps, painted and stained the north wall, upper trim and doors. That's 1,000 square feet of work. Red One's major project has been Roosevelt Center, where as volunteers, they did about $70,000 worth of infrastructure and improvement work. They prepped and painted 7,900 square feet of hallway and stairs on the 3rd floor. That involved removing wallpaper, patching holes, spackling, sanding, priming, painting. Like the UPS commercial on TV, Red did every ing in the book. Plus, they took out old furniture and lockers, filled holes in the parking lot, painted picnic tables, trimmed trees, converted a locker room into a studio, and pretty much anything else we asked them to do. Over at the recycling center, Red One sorted and recycled 26 tons of paper, plastic, and cardboard. At the Boys and Girls Club, Red One helped with activities like youth nutrition program. And Red One joined Helena Area Habitat for Humanity for a week-long project where they helped build the outer walls of 3 houses so families could continue construction inside during the winter. Lastly, Red One reached out to Red Lodge area nonprofits and foundation community partners to facilitate 14 different independent service projects. These were in the areas of rural and urban revitalization, environmental conservation, youth education and development, and infrastructure improvement. And all of that was done with coping with COVID-19, adhering to public health guidelines, dealing with COVID-related setbacks on the Habitat for Humanity project, and working independently when supervisors were quarantined. Red One has made our community a better place by far, and we wish the best for them as they leave to take up their individual life paths. The Red One team is our volunteer champion for a resilient community. Thank you. Our renovation of Old Roosevelt School and its reopening as Roosevelt Center is a credit to a great many people. One of the key players in that effort is RJ Slavin of RJ's Plumbing. RJ drops anything and everything to take any and all plumbing related questions we have at Roosevelt. Why isn't the heater turning on? Call RJ. It's Sunday, but we've got a problem now. Call RJ. The AmeriCorps team needs to remove old toilets. How do they do that without making a mess? A quick aside here, the AmeriCorps team did not realize the toilets would be on their to-do list when they signed up. No matter, call RJ. At the foundation, we know nonprofits, but plumbing, not so much. The Roosevelt team rests a lot easier knowing that RJ is available to help us with whatever the latest issue is whenever it blows up. When RJ and his wife Sunshine aren't helping us at Roosevelt, they can be found at Cattail Bakery after skiing. We wish them a lot of great skiing and good times at the bakery. RJ Slavin is our volunteer champion. Yay. Our final volunteer champion is a bit of a surprise nomination. Because she is so involved with volunteering, we had to make sure we kept it off the books from her. Sue Burry defied many odds against volunteering during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and found a way to help the Community Foundation in a plethora of ways. Her outreach and dedication to the Charity Chat news page and an informational section that comes out once a month in the Carmen County News about nonprofit news is the cornerstone of her nomination this year. We hope she found as much joy in writing and reporting for Charity Chat as we did reading her stories. Sue very well could be referred to as our first volunteer champion, as she created our volunteer program and trained those volunteers. She spent time checking in with those volunteers frequently and helped us refine the projects you know at the foundation. Thank you, Sue.
So wonderful to celebrate our volunteer champions because that is just a few individuals of many, almost 300 volunteers that are helping us every year in and out of all the projects that are going on in the community. So it is fabulous to spend some time thinking about these special contributions and what it really means for our community. I want to thank Merv, Bill, and Martha for your presentations today and helping to really bring out what the Community Foundation is doing and all the different pieces that are required for us to do it. We don't work alone ever. We're always working with people. I was very exciting to have the AmeriCorps back in our community. We had had about a 2-year hiatus. Previously to that, we had about 10 years, 11 years of AmeriCorps Vistas serving in our community. And AmeriCorps Vista is a little different from the NCC members that we just had here in that AmeriCorps Vista does research and development projects. They don't work on direct projects. So we had about a 2-year hiatus, and then we had the opportunity to engage AmeriCorps NCC members who do provide direct service work. So it was quite a learning curve for them and for us when the first group came into Red Lodge, but it was the wonderful spirit of the Red Lodge and across the county of welcoming these volunteers into our community and helping them and supporting them and learning leadership and more about rural America. And we have really great news is that we are back. We have an open application with AmeriCorps Vista for a workforce housing Vista to come to our community in addition to these additional NCC members. So you're going to have all kinds of AmeriCorps you're going to bump into around town and just say, hey, thanks for your good work, because they come here and really are doing it out of the goodness of their heart. And we're so lucky to have them. We wouldn't be this far. Just in this year, last year, we had 3,900 volunteer hours that equated to about $106,000 of labor efforts that really helped us to move our things forward. And that was not a direct expense of the Community Foundation. So we really appreciate that portion too. And plus, they always bring this energy that just shakes things up, and they bring the experiences from different places and helps us to always continue to expand also. They spend a lot of time soaking up skills, the experiences, leadership, and they have loved working for multiple organizations. So I think that some of them are online with us, and we miss you and we love you, and thanks for spending time in Red Lodge, and we hope you come back. I would also like to give a quick shout out to Northwestern Energy, specifically Lisa Perry. She's always keeping an eye on the Community Foundation and what we have going on and in our community in general. And she just wanted me to reiterate about how proud that they are to serve the Red Lodge community. And she's particularly pleased to support the work and efforts of the Community Foundation in bringing resources together across Carbon County. This is just a quick look at some of the highlights from 2020. We had 2 classrooms completed the Resilient Rams Mindfulness Program, which has been requested to be expanded in the school districts this year. 3 age-friendly Carbon County newsletters. So we do have a newsletter now that goes out on a regular basis, and we think we're hitting on that on a quarterly basis. 19 families received early childhood grants. 23 states were represented in the first virtual fun run. Seniors are receiving $50 for local farmers markets to access fresh food. 63 funds is what the Community Foundation currently manages. We had 87 people assisted with volunteer navigators, which really helps to support the need in our community once Office of Public Assistance left our community. They are very dedicated people. 471 participants were in the virtual fun run, which we thought was phenomenal for our first time going out. 1,300 high school community volunteer hours this year, and that's during a COVID year, so that is exceptional. 2,700 volunteer hours at the Roosevelt Center. And I just want to thank Janet, Anita. They did a lot of those volunteer hours helping us work on the interior design. And then all the people that they drafted in to come and put that into a reality on the walls in this building. So thank you for that. We had 17,481 square feet of walls patched and painted, and we awarded $690,000 worth of grants to community projects in Red Lodge. So that's a brief overview of what we have going on. We had someone in the chat box asked to speak a little bit more about the CART project. And of course, the CART project is so near and dear to my heart. And it's especially exciting because we do research and development into all the projects that we do. And so oftentimes people don't see the 2 or 3 years of work that's going on behind the scenes before a van pulls up to a front door in our community. And that is no exception with the CART project. What really started out is a highly engaged donor reached out to us, and we set up what we call a senior ARC fund, which was a grant making program to help people to receive money for improvements so that they could age in a place of their choice and help them to stay in their community as they might want. From there, we saw some needs, special needs of seniors, and so we developed a community care program in partnership with the Red Lodge Fire Rescue Services. And together we started to explore what were the needs of riders getting to and from professional services, focused mainly on the medical facilities. So from that idea, from those ideas going on, we were able to engage an AmeriCorps Vista person who namely we've referred to twice today, which was George Mann, who is in the middle of becoming a doctor back east. And so through his 1 year of gap year, he spent time going around our county and getting to know so many people. And we brought all that forward and really started to work with the state of Montana about having a regional transportation system that is a no-cost system that is in operation now. I think we started in mid-January giving rides. The van's out there today helping move people from the Civic Center parking lot to the Roosevelt Center where vaccinations are taking place. So when parking was a problem, when we did off-site parking, we had that van. One of the most important parts of this is not just that we have a volunteer group that has been focused on this for 3 years of figuring out the massive amount of details of how to put a system like this into operation. The support of Montana Department of Transportation, our consultants LSC, who worked from Denver to help us figure out this ride system and what would work well in a rural community in Montana. And the partnering organizations across the state who already have transit systems who have answered our endless questions about how we could do what they're doing here. And even if our counties aren't exactly the same. So we have partners across the county, we have them across the state. And since those rides first started in January, we have already expanded the route. So we opened up doing 2 or 3 days a week, and now we're at 4 days a week. We are already doing a route to Billings, which we thought was going to have to wait until much later in the year. And we have confirmation that we will be receiving a second van that is supposed to be here around June, which is a 12-passenger van. So we will be hiring additional drivers, and we will continue to expand the routes. And so this really goes back to that initial dream of helping people age in a place of choice. It really helps us with some of those ARP livability components that we were awarded. We were the second award in Montana to be recognized by ARP as a livable community. And so this transportation is really helping us to live up to that people should be able to age in a place of choice. And for me, one of the pieces that was near and dear to my heart as the project continued to evolve is what we could do about isolation of people that needed a ride somewhere and there wasn't anyone to give them a ride. So we already just received a note from a rider, and in her note, she said about what a relief it was to receive a ride to her medical appointment, because it's often very hard or impossible to find a ride. So it's already worked magic, and it's only been in operation for a couple of months. and it's been on a limited basis. So we have high hopes of working with so many partners to make sure that this becomes a permanent part of Carbon County. And that's included our partners with the county, it includes partners with the city, it includes partners with funders and corporations who are sponsoring this, and of course with our state government who's giving us operation grants, along with Montana Healthcare Foundation, who helped to give us a bridge gap grant that would help us get from planning stage into operation stage. So obviously that's been successful too because we're operating. So the CART information is being plastered in a lot of places. You can find it on our website. You can find it on posters around town in post offices. You can find it on the Facebook page. And we have some ads running in Carbon County News too. If you have any questions, you can reach out to the Community Foundation and we can get you connected. And I want to thank David Kallenbach and Nancy Hillman, who are our first drivers of the CART transportation project, of going out there and figuring out how to make each an individual ride happen, because we're all learning together, which is one of the favorite things at the Community Foundation, is learning in public. Another way that we spent time learning in public was, of course, what happened with the pandemic starting just a week and a half before our annual meeting last year. So we were all ready to do this last year, and then COVID hit, and we were not prepared to do a virtual meeting during that time when we were trying to close everything down and follow the instructions from public health. However, while that was going on, we did take those 2 or 3 days. Immediately, we recognized that there were going to be people in need, that were going to need some financial support right away. And that's because we've been working with people like that in those sorts of situations for many years. So we immediately looked out about how this was going to impact other people and how we could respond to that. We received amazing community support for the COVID relief fund. And there was some tough situations. We immediately organized not only people being able to donate to a fund, but a peer review group who is anonymous, who reviews each of those applications. They're volunteers outside of the foundation, and also staff that could do that, and our IT people and our website people at getting everything up and online. And OP&WE Edwards Foundation, Amy Highfield, reached out to us and offered a platform to do these applications that we hadn't used before. So a lot of partners just rushed together to make sure that we could create this relief fund to help people. And Luke is helping me here with the slides, so thank you, Luke, for doing that. So what we have up here speaks to the fact that we raised a total of $65,000 in donations. We granted 35,000 of those through Emergency Relief Fund. When we set up the fund, several leaders in our community came to us and asked us that as we raised those funds, to try to keep half of that going out for immediate needs and holding half back because we didn't know yet what we would need for recovery. So we responded to that, and we do still have a remaining balance of $28,000 in the longer term recovery fund, which we're listening to the community to figure out what it is that they're going to want to use those funds for. And I think it was a great insight to do so, because certainly in my opinion, the pandemic lasted much longer than we thought it was when it first occurred in March of last year. So it's nice to have those funds to figure out what we as a community, as a county, how we want to move forward and how those funds can be best used in recovery. One of the startling moments wasn't so much about the number of applications. We gave 90 grants out. But it was that in the very beginning, in the first couple of weeks, it was the people that were requesting funds and really needed basic needs to be covered were people that, couldn't miss a beat because they were already in a low income poverty situation. And so it was great to be able to give them some relief until they could figure out, what they needed to do for the longer term. Then next, in 3 to 4 weeks into that, what we discovered is we were receiving grant requests for families that we're working with all the time that are volunteering for projects and things that jobs had been affected and their income streams had been disrupted. And they needed these funds to bridge until they themselves got situated, which, in some people's experiences that only took, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, and they were off and going again. So I want to let you know that the funds were something to help people bridge that time, but it has not been a fund where people can continue to come back to it over and over and over again, unless there's an extreme situation going on. We also took the approach with our community and our partners across the state is that using the local funds was sort of our last resource. We tended to reach out to the state resources as they became available, the federal resources as they became available, and specialized organizations that had funds become available to them. We also reached out to all of our nonprofits in the community with the longer term recovery funds. If they were short in what they were doing on direct COVID relief, they were getting some of those grants. That's why the balance in the long-term recovery is 28,000, is because we helped some nonprofits that needed to bridge some things because they were providing services in response to COVID. So that's sort of where we were at as far as how we were spending our time immediately, and still today we're receiving applications. But we do go back and forth. When the state closes a fund, then we will accept applications for that particular fund. So rental assistance has been back and forth. So sometimes we're still offering rental assistance if the state's resources are closed down during that time period. And then one of our other major things that was happening in the interim was the fun run for charities. And what happened with the fun run is we were super excited because this was a year that we had a goal of breaking $3 million. Like we knew last year when we were celebrating last October with awards that went to the charities, we were saying, yeah, our big goal is in that next year to do $3 million. And then COVID hit and we held out as long as possible. The board of directors at the foundation was just waiting until the last minute to say it wasn't going to be an in-person event. That it would have to be a virtual event, and which is what came to pass. And we handled it in the Red Lodge in Carbon County style, as we just said, all right, well, this is what's before us, so we'll go out and we'll see what we can do with it. And we did still break $3 million, even though it wasn't an in-person event. And we brought our 17th year event. We had 60 nonprofits involved, and it was our third largest distribution with $241,000. This again brought that human approach of pulling together, because we were very concerned about if we should have the event at all because of the financial times. And our board spent a lot of time with staff deliberating about how our approach should be in doing this. Do we ask for money when there's so much going on? But we knew charities had budgets that needed to be filled, and what was the balance in that? And so what we did is we reached out to our businesses who are the sponsors who help with the match funds. They pay the bills and then the rest goes to the charities. And we asked them what they wanted us to, what our approach should be. We asked a few of them. We came back and the board decided what we would do is we asked all the businesses if we could use their logos regardless of whether or not they could pay a sponsorship that year. We wanted everybody's logos to remain the same no matter what was going on in the background. But we still wanted to have the event and did not call the event off because we knew every charity had an item on their income statement that said Fun Run for Charity proceeds, and that every one of those would have been without a funding source. So we think we did the right thing, raising $241,000 for those charities. Let's see. Luke, do we have Andy ready? Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move into our first remote presentation, which is with a long-term volunteer and a total champion of Red Lodge Ice, and that is Andy Simpson. And we're taking a look, making sure that we can hear Andy. Andy, thanks for your patience, and everyone. Andy, we cannot hear you. Is there any chance that you're on mute? No?
Hello, hello.
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you, Andy.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
I had to test my microphone apparently.
Well, it worked.
All right, so I'm Andy Simpson with Red Lodge Ice, president of Red Lodge Ice. Just want to say thank you to the foundation and all the hard workers they have there that do things behind the scenes. I live in Red Lodge here with my wife and son, soon to be 2 sons. We love this town and we really hope the future gets better and better. And you guys help a ton doing that, so thank you. So they asked me to come share our success story of our tourism grant with the state of Montana. Considering this last pandemic year, we still had a great season at the rink. Unfortunately, it's over for now, but until next year. So looking back on the timeline, it's kind of been a long time coming. I think it's been about 1.5 years since we found out about the tourism grant. And I think Sherry Weimer at the Chamber of Commerce first gave me a heads up. And we looked at it and it fit our mission statement and what we offer the town as far as tourism. So we went for it. Next thing I know, I'm talking with Mary Vett, who is a champion for the community here. And without her, we probably wouldn't have got this done. So thank you, Mary Vett, very much. So we started the application process, which was kind of a daunting task for me. And again, Mary Vett held my hand the whole way, so that was great. In the end, we were awarded, I think, a little over $35,000, with about 1/3 of that coming from Red Lodge Ice funds. With that money, we basically, I guess the project, we titled it the Red Lodge Ice Refresh. So all of our equipment was getting older, our infrastructure was getting older, and probably about 1 year before that, we relied heavily on the Fun Run funds as our only donation source. So in the last couple of years, we've added some tournaments and leagues to increase donations, and then this grant came along and really boosted the ice rink up. So with that money, we bought brand new snow blowers, which are fantastic. Makes clearing the ice easier. Doesn't make it totally easy, but a lot better. We were able to add some end boards on the end of the rink, which also allowed us to add some sponsors, some additional donation income. We added some safety netting around the backs of the rink, so there's no pucks flying to hit people. Sounds like my banner might come down mid talk, which is great. Then we added some things for learning to skate aids, some shovels for the rink, a storage trailer to store our new boards in. And then additionally, we did some advertising around the area through Destination Red. There it goes. We did some advertising, Destination Red Lodge and Cody, and then some Facebook marketing. So in the end, it was a huge boost to the ice rink. Everyone was very impressed this year. It was a great season, and we have a lot of that to thank to the grant that we were awarded. We're very gracious for all of our donors that we have. I'm very proud to be president of Red Lodge Ice, and I get a lot of recognition, which is kind of humbling for me, because we have a huge pool of dedicated volunteers that make it all happen. And a lot of times they don't get the direct recognition. So I'd like to thank all them in person here. Yeah, I'm very proud to live in Red Lodge. The amount of nonprofits we have that make all these things possible is fantastic. I think next up, Kevin Bonk's going to talk about the skate park, which is also fantastic news and just shows what, dedicated volunteers can do when they put their mind to things. So yeah, if anyone has any questions about the process with the grant, It definitely wasn't easy, and we're still wrapping up the final stages of that grant, but anything's possible. And thank you, Mary Beth, again. Without this, it wasn't possible.
Well, thank you, Andy, for all the years that you have championed the Red Lodge Ice Skate Park. And the community just is idyllic piece of our culture here. And I think, you know, I appreciate how you have been in this fiscal relationship with us. And this year, or in the last 2 years, was really big, being able to coordinate the grant from the state to your activity. And we did that through what we call fiscal sponsorship. And so for people that might not be familiar with that, the Community Foundation has the ability with their nonprofit status to be able to offer grassroots organizations that are charitable in nature the ability to come under our nonprofit status and have a project that would be then be able to be funded through our nonprofit. So we kind of bridge grassroots efforts in our community with funding opportunities or whatever other skill sets that different groups might be looking for to bring the project to fruition. So it's really nice to work with passionate volunteers who do all of the legwork and we just help with a little bit of the financial pieces to the puzzle, and it's off and going. So Andy, you made it look really easy. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, and so the next one we have up is a recording from Kevin Bonk, who I will tell you, he is a no-nonsense, get-her-done kind of guy. He walked in and he told the foundation one day and he said, you know, what is the deal with the skate park? Why can't we get the skate park that we want? And I was like, Kevin, we really need dedicated volunteers who want to get behind that. You know, things cycle in communities. You have groups of volunteers that get something done and it goes and goes and goes for a while. And then it's time for it to cycle and a new group of volunteers to come up. And so that's what Kevin Bonk did, is he became that new group and that new champion at the skate park. And wow, what a job he did. We can start the video.
I'm Kevin Bonk, and I started the Hellride Skate Park with Ryan Rummel. Without the help of the Red Lodge Area Community Foundation, we probably could not have done it, because their nonprofit gave us direction and help with the funding and advertising and all the things that go into trying to raise donations for the new Hellride Skate Park in Red Lodge. And without them, it would have been extremely difficult to get the project done. And because of them and their community support, we've been able to raise well over $230,000 in 10 months. And the Hellride Skate Park is now 99% complete and will be completely finished here this spring. And we're extremely grateful for all the help that was given to us by Tracy, Heidi, Susan, and Stephen over at the foundation, and Skylar too, for doing this video. And without them and their input and their direction, it would have been incredibly difficult for us to raise those kinds of funds that quickly, which just shows the support of the community and how much they want to be involved in supporting Red Lodge.
So I'd like to thank Kevin and all the volunteers and the fundraising that went on to make that a reality. And it's going to be really exciting to see. The last piece they have to do is the planting of the trees and things around the landscaping plan. So it sure looks nice and it sure is a lot of momentum. And I really appreciate That's the support that that offers to the youth and young adults and families in our community. It's another outlet for us. And I want to say in both of these projects that we highlighted with the skate park and the ice rink is that these all have partners that might not be obvious, because when we're working in the parks and they're both parks, we're working with the city government, or if it's a county park, we're working with county government. And then we work with different funding sources, some of which are from the state of Montana, and some are working with individual donors. And then the hours and hours of volunteers that go into each and every project that we're doing in our community. So when we talk about how great these projects are, we're really talking about how great it is for community to come together on efforts to make them possible. It doesn't just somebody's idea and it goes and gets done. It just takes over a lot of momentum over a certain period of time, and that changes relevant to what type of project it is. But it really is a coming together of community, and that's what we're really celebrating, is this coming together of community and making Red Lodge and Carbon County places where people want to live, work, and play. We're going to go ahead now and transition a little bit into the next slide, which has a little bit of a focus on robust arts and culture for the Community Foundation, which for us, the major project in this area is the Roosevelt Center, which it's still very nice to be on the Harper Recital Hall. I still have goosebumps about the fact that we're getting so close to using this space. As Gloria spoke to earlier, while we don't have a lot of performing events going on since the pandemic hit, we have had a lot of community need for using the center in ways that even when the community was envisioning this center, that weren't on our radar. So it's created a new definition and expansion of what the building can be used for. And it has really focused on things that we didn't plan, such as the Roosevelt Auditorium. You know, we bought a risers and a stage that could be taken or put up and taken down as we needed it to keep the space flexible for the community. And that's what's actually has happened. We went from having performances and having the risers up in the room to now flat space room where public health is working to provide vaccination clinics. We've also had the group who is doing food boxes across the county organizing in the hallways and out of that auditorium to make sure those things are going on. Also, another use that we never thought of was the AmeriCorps coming back to town. So when they came into town, generally speaking, there's some sort of rental property available for them to live in, or sometimes people graciously allow them to stay in part of their property while they're doing their work in our community. When AmeriCorps come to communities, they are not making a lot of money. On purpose, that particular federal program requires that they live in poverty and low-income situations, because that's the purpose of them being here, is to help support efforts to offset poverty and low income. So, you know, with a high rental market, sometimes that's not possible. Well, with COVID, not only were there not any rentals available, but of course, people were hesitant to allow their houses to be shared because of what was going on with the pandemic. And so we were able to allow them to stay in the Roosevelt Center auditorium while they were volunteering in the community. And that was not a use that we ever dreamed possible. And it took a lot of fast action on a lot of different things to make sure that it was viable for them, and that the program would allow that sort of housing. And so lo and behold, they pull into town with a van and with cots, one for each one of them, and they were ready to stay at the Roosevelt Center. So it has been phenomenal, of course, then the impacts and the work that they did to transition the building at the same time. Another major event that has happened at Roosevelt is, of course, we have reached 100% occupancy of all of the spaces that are available for rent. And I just really want to commend Kat and Skylar for making that happen, because they are roll with what's going on and exploring needs and new ideas and ways of thinking about these rooms and who can be put where best. And they are always in perpetual motion when they're doing that. And so we couldn't find a better team that is making the community's needs for the center possible. I don't ever hear them say no, just a pause, take a breath and go, yeah, I think that's what's going on here. And I just love that energy so much. We're so fortunate to have that. The Community Foundation Board has worked very hard. I have to put this down, work very hard to determine the next capital developments at the Roosevelt Center and the investments. And when is a good time to ask the community to continue and to invest? And what we have decided, since all of the rooms are completely rented and generating revenue and doing a good job, we still offset by not having events, but that's just part of what's going on right now with the pandemic. We know that those events will come back. That we felt we really do need to focus on opening the third floor permanently. So the board of directors has agreed for us to do the final fundraising and get into the final designs of this third floor space so that it can be made again into the vibrant space that Rayleigh Gregory T. Harper envisioned when he left his proceeds of his will to a performing arts center in Red Lodge. So we are tasked with getting the fire suppression system in, which we have a design and we have a contractor contracted to get started and should be getting started in the next few weeks. And while that is going on, we will be focusing on the ADA and other issues that we need to get our occupancy permit to open this center. Originally, we had hoped that that was going to happen at the beginning of summer. We're not sure that that's actually viable at this point. But we will be working on getting the events open as soon as public health gives us the clear that events can be going on. And since summer is coming, we will have outdoor events going on. So there's a few different pieces that are going on, but we are really hopeful to have the recital hall open and performing again. And I don't know if you haven't seen, we have this great video of performers, which is Randy Tracy and Sue Logan, and bragging about the great acoustics in this room. And so that people are just excited. And if you've ever had the opportunity, when we have workers in here because of the short daylight time, I've had the opportunity to drive by this building several times and have the third floor lit up while they're working in there. And it just really brings a deep sense of awe of the possibilities that are going to be going on in a historic building like this, and that we didn't lose it for other developments that didn't want this building. So even though it has been a very long and hard path, we are getting to sort of the halfway mark of having the whole building opened up, and then we can continue to develop. And the other great thing that happened this year was that our artist Lee Kern was able to install our first sculpture outside of the Rocky Juniper Moose. So we have seen so many tourists and people stop and take pictures of their families in front of the moose. It is just phenomenal and a great location on Main Street. The campaign that we're going to be kicking off in the next few weeks for the Roosevelt Center includes raising the matching funds we need for the fire suppression system of $79,000. And so we're going to be hoping to reach out to 39 people or organizations to grant $2,000 each so we can get the hall opened up. So that is kind of where we've been and where we're headed with the Roosevelt Center. And in addition to that, I would like to take some time to thank Kim with the Arts Guild, because the Arts Guild has been a phenomenal partner in the transition at the Roosevelt Center. Part of what the Community Foundation does in all of our projects is reach out to community partners and help build capacity. And in turn, they help build our capacity. And that has certainly been the example with the Arts Guild. Kim was open to the idea that of having additional space, sort of, so to speak, a satellite gallery, which has been installed at the Roosevelt Center probably for a couple of years. However, this year they were able to expand that gallery to now they have a second floor gallery, which contains photography. And so the win-win-win in this relationship is that the Arts Guild wanted more spaces to display their art, their member artists' work in our community. And the Roosevelt Center needed something on the walls that really truly represented local arts in our community. And so that coming together has been beautiful. And when you can see right here, a few of the pictures that are on the wall, the Arts Guild is amazing. They kind of own those walls. And so they put new pieces of art, usually 3 to 4 times a year. They move what art is displayed on there. And of course, all the art is available for sale. And so it's a really wonderful opportunity. And I don't have any pictures of this, but I want to do a really great shout out to Back Alley Metals, because they did this wonderful thing and they created a display barrier that goes in front of this art in the hallway so that people don't bump up against it. And of course, they made it out of metal because that's Back Alley Metals, but they also pulled a piece of Red Lodge Mountain down into town and used the cables from the lifts and recycled them into the little arches that are along those walls. So it brings that element of metal, but that history and culture from the mountain into the Roosevelt Center. So kudos to them for doing that. It was amazing what they came up with. I would also, going a little bit further into the annual report, because I think we're running a little ahead of schedule. So I'm going to go ahead and speak to one more thing now before we get into one more presentation, and that is the Early Childhood Fund. There we go. So I want to speak to the Early Childhood Fund because this is definitely a prime example of the Community Foundation providing for gaps in our community, sort of bridging gaps. That's what we spend a lot of our time focused on. And you can see in this chart on when we first started the fund in 2017 and 18 and 19, how the demand grew and grew. In 2020, it looks like the demand went down, but the demand did not go down. What happened was that because people weren't working and childcare facilities were closed, that there was no childcare payments going on and no need for assistance going on. If the growth would have continued like it was, we would have capped out and not been able to help these families. And so I think I would like to explain just a little bit about what the gap in the services are and why we have an early childhood fund. And one of the main reasons for that is that there is some inequalities for people in qualifying for some government assistance for childcare so that families can work. And that particular piece is called the Best Beginnings Fund. So people can get some funds from the state to help offset the high cost of childcare, especially in resort communities. What happens, however, is one of the incomes that gets counted for the family income is child support. And that child support is counted whether or not it is paid. Whether or not the family is receiving it, it is counted. And that creates a gap for families that if they're not receiving a benefit for their children and their household income doesn't qualify, then they can't get any assistance. And so the Early Childhood Fund has one of the focuses is to help bridge that, sort of that inequality there. So don't let this number look like we have met where we're at. We are going to be working more closely with other organizations to find out the other ways to bridge that. The committee, which is the Early Childhood Committee, focuses on this work and focuses with partners across the state on how they're also addressing childcare needs in their community, because even though we've been working in this area solidly for 5 or 6 years, we have not in our communities have enough childcare slots for families who need them, and for that quality care and sometimes preschool options that families want. So this particular project, while it looks like it has a lot of good growth and those sorts of things, is that we're just tipping the iceberg of what needs to be done for childcare and families in Red Lodge and Carbon County. All right, do we have Jacob online? Pardon me? Okay. All right, well, I think while we're waiting on that, and I'm a little bit ahead of schedule for Kevin, we'll just go ahead and get started on some of the foundation's financials. And so this is our 2020 financial statement. And I just want to let you know that these are our preliminary numbers, in that our formal report of our financials is located in our 990, which is an IRS filing. And that filing usually doesn't take place until April or May, and our annual meeting always comes ahead of that. And sometimes we do an extension and it's not until October or November. So these are sort of our preliminary numbers of what we're seeing right now at the foundation, and that our income this year was $1.8 million. And just so you know, that's not all the foundation's money. That's money that we've collected for lots of organizations. And I'm really proud of several things on here. First of all, that we continue to be dedicated to having a diversified income strategy. And the word I'm using in diversified in this case is that you can see we have a variety of sources that funds our activities. So on here you have where we have grants, contributions, earned income, other income, and then in this year, we had the COVID relief sources that came into our community through the foundation. So what you see when you look at the pie chart is that we have not one sole thing that's more than 50%, that if we lost it, that the foundation would be, in trouble in what we're offering to the community. So that shows the sort of the strength of the income, but it also provides just a little bit of insight into the public support of the community foundation. So all nonprofit organizations through the IRS, we have to prove public support every year. And that test really includes the fact that contributions from individuals should be at a minimum of 33 1/3% of our total donations. And through public donations. And last year on our public support of the money coming in from that way was 84.31%, which was up from the previous year of 82, almost 83%. So we're still increasing in the amount of public support provided to us that comes through individual donations. Some of the things that we're going to see on our income, there's a page, is that over the year before, I want to do just a little bit of comparison so people recognize where the foundation and how did we come out during what was going on with COVID. In 2019, 46% of our donations came in from contributions, which are primarily individuals. This year we were at 35%. So we were down about $30,000 over the year previous for individual contributions. However, we have a new category that we didn't have before, which was the COVID relief resources that came into our community, which shows it's about $316,000 that we brought in donations. Our earned income is down about $14,000, and earned income in this instance was primarily the rents at the Roosevelt Center, which would have been a lot of those event cancellations that happened because we couldn't have events at the Roosevelt Center. And some of that was rents and vacancies that occurred also during that time. Then we get into the other income, and other income is down about $54,000 over the year previously. And a great part of that has to do with the fiscal sponsorships. So one of the main reasons we have this income is because we do charge a fee when we're helping organizations in the community fundraise, and when we're taking care of the funds coming in and managing their funds for them. And so we had a really big one the year before because the recycling group, we were helping the recycling group stay open. And so we processed all their donations that year, and we did not do that in 2020. So that's as part of the drop. It's not the full amount. I'm not saying we collected $54,000 from them, but from a variety of sources that we would have, that's kind of why that number is down. It has to do more with our operations and the COVID happening, and not all the operations were going on. And then we had a slight increase in grants this year, and that grant benefit really, for the most part, came up because we received the money for the CART transportation project. So all of our financial representations include temporarily restricted funds and unrestricted funds, which really what it says is administrative funds mostly come out of unrestricted and program funds come out of temporarily restricted. So it's some complicated things in the nonprofit world, but most of our grants, they are temporarily restricted funds in that they can only be used for the reasons in which they were awarded to us. And so this year, with a little bit of our growth, we received the Montana Healthcare Foundation grant, Montana Department of Transportation. We were the receiver of Red Lodge's ICE's Montana Tourism Grant because we hold their funds for them. The same with Skate Park and helping them fundraise, and then the funds that we brought in for workforce housing. So there's quite a few things that are funded in this particular example. So overall, you'll see that, yes, we seem to have raised $395,000 more than the year before, but the majority of those things have been restricted either to COVID funds directly or into the areas where we're helping other organizations or projects in the community. And I also want to let you know that a lot of our grants has to do with timing. Sometimes when they come in, they would come in late in the year and they're really used for next year. So we have a lot of carry forward balances on that particular number. All right. Looks like we're still going ahead. So we have our financials in the expense area. And the expense area really helps to look at the different program areas and what our investments in. So you can see resilient communities, 10% of the money that we expensed out this year. Robust arts and culture was at 12%, youth 5%, thriving nonprofits 12%, administrative at 8%, and fundraising at 3%. We're really proud of the fact that 47% of our funds were granted back out into the community, which was our largest expense over the year, and the rest being mostly program funds. We're happy that we did move from where we talked about last year. We said the 2 years ago, we talked about how the foundation has been starving in the area of administrative costs and fundraising for those. The industry average of that for fundraising and admin is 23%. And 2 years ago, when we reported out, we were at 11%. At this financial accounting, we are at about 12.3%. So we were able, through everything that's going on, to improve that situation, but not anywhere close to where we need to be. And the actions that the Community Foundation is taking on that is the board and the finance committee are looking very closely at how we're administering our funds and the accounting structures that we have in place to make sure that we're receiving everything that we can for admin and making sure that our fundraising goals are aligning more closely with that. So we're going to see a lot of efforts go into the membership campaign that we'll be kicking off this week. It always follows the annual meeting. It will also focus on our year-end campaign. Those are our major fundraisers that help the Community Foundation as far as the administrative abilities to manage all of the programs and projects that are going on in our community that we're supporting. All right, when we do the side-by-side comparison from 19 and 20, what we see is that resilient community was just down 1%, which really in the expense column meant that we felt like we weren't meeting and offering meals and having those kinds of meeting expenses as much as we did before. A good part of that is the health fair and those types of public activities. The Roosevelt Center shows that it is down considerably over the year before, but that has to do with in 19, we were doing the capital improvements to the Roosevelt Center for the heating system so that we had this side of the building, the 1920 side of the building opened, and we weren't making those kinds of investments in 2020. So next year we expect with putting the fire suppression system and things into the Roosevelt Center, we'll see another big hike in this particular program area for expenses. The youth program pretty much stayed the same in that the programming that we were providing to them, even though we didn't have access to them in the school as on a regular basis as we had before, the kids were still volunteering and doing activities in the capacity they could during the pandemic. Thriving Nonprofits area was down about $5,000. That number also hits in a little bit with the fun run was down a little bit over the year before. And so our expenses that we would have been expending on an in-person event, we were able to save. So the expenses show that they're down, but it was not significantly with some of the other expenses that we had going on to accommodate that. Our administration was about the same as what we did before. Fundraising efforts were just about the same. Well, we had $12,000 increase, but it was because we spent a little bit more time on trying to focus on the fundraising, which had mostly to do with the COVID relief fund. So that was a fund we hadn't fundraised for previously, so those expenses went up. And in grant making, this number, it seems significant, but it really had to do with the COVID relief funds and how they processed through our books. And so much of that was passed through to the community. The COVID relief and recovery fund, it had to do with the fund that we set up. It had to do with offering relief for Roosevelt tenants. It also had to do with all the PPE things that we had to purchase for our buildings when they could be opened. And also the expense of some of the canceled events. The COVID funds that we have and that we received from other resources, this is something that's not going to show up on our financial reports, but is our reality, is when we received some COVID offset for funds, those funds, generally speaking, went back to the grant that paid for that program. So what that means is program grants were reimbursed by the COVID funds. And then that takes us further into this year before they'll be expended. So it's like the funders are benefiting from the COVID funds in that way, that their grant, if we were reapplying to them, we would now reapply 6 or 9 months later than we normally would have this year, because those funds are going to last longer. So that was the net effect of the funds that were received specifically from COVID. Expenses by year, income and expenses by year. So you see a big jump in the income, which is primarily to do with the COVID funds that came into the community. And the expenses, they also grew, but not significantly. And a lot of that will show up, I think, in reverse next year when we expend those funds that we got from COVID in 2021. All right. He's on? Wonderful. Perfect timing, Jacob. We're so glad to have you here. I want to just visit a little bit in introducing Jacob and his team. This is a monumental partnership, in my opinion. This is a deal changer for many organizations across rural Montana and maybe the entire rural US, and especially in tourist-based communities. A partnership that consists of Helena Habitat for Humanity and Montana Trust, which is the land trust that holds the land and the workforce housing projects that we're doing. So I'm going to have Jacob is going to speak to this a little bit more, but I just want to say that this is an incredible partnership, and the foundation, we've been in this for a little while. If we remember and we think back through our annual reports, there was a point in time where we had Carbon County Habitat for Humanity in Red Lodge. And after they did a phenomenal work in multiple towns in Carbon County, they decided that they were done doing building houses, and they worked really hard for almost a year to figure out how to best invest their assets that were remaining. In the end, they decided to transfer their assets to the community foundation, and we had not been involved in housing prior to that. We took the assets with an agreement with them that we would do a build within 1 year of receiving that, and that we would continue to build partnerships so that building could happen, continue to happen in Carbon County after the transfer. So we spent a very struggling year or two trying to figure out how to do it. We did have a successful build. We have a family in that home, and we found other partners along the way who are really taking this to an incredible level. So I'd like to introduce Jacob Kuntz with Helena Habitat for Humanity.
Thanks, Tracy. I appreciate that. Yeah, this has been an incredible experience, wonderful partnership. And we can't be more thrilled about, the progress that's been made, and despite the challenging times with COVID and different factors that come with a new project. Our organization was pretty small a few years ago. We were building one house a year in Helena, and with the addition of a grant from the USDA's Rural Development Department for mutual self-help, we were able to expand our work in Helena. And then we heard the great work that was happening in Red Lodge and the work with land trusts. And we were like, wow, well, it'd be wonderful to figure out a partnership. And so it took a couple of years, but here we are, 4 homes that are currently under construction. We'll have another homes going in the ground here in the next couple of months. And we have land for a total of what will be 14 homes in the Spires neighborhood there in Red Lodge. So very exciting. We're using that mutual self-help model where families group together as part of a build group, and they build each other's homes with nobody moving in until all the homes are completed. The partnership between our program staff and the staff of RLACF on getting families financially ready has been incredible. The work with the community, despite the the limitations of the pandemic and not being able to have the volunteers, just incredibly supportive. And we're thrilled to be able to go into a second round of building homes with another group of 3 families starting with us here in the next few months on the next round of building. I just will mention this, and I'm happy to expand on this, Tracy, however you'd like, but our board has recently opened the door for us to consider ways of adding development of rental homes to the work that we're doing. So we're flexible, and we're interested and eager to continue a conversation with the foundation and with the community on what's best for Red Lodge, and come to a solution that makes sense for the community. And I just am so thankful for RLACF just being willing to jump in with us on some pretty crazy harebrained ideas that we've been able to put together and make a project possible. It's just been a remarkable experience.
Jacob, thank you. Could you illustrate a little bit about the high-level roles of each of the partners in making these houses available?
Yes, absolutely. So, Helena Area Habitat for Humanity has a grant from the USDA for mutual self-help. We receive funding per home that we develop, so it ends up offsetting costs for hiring construction staff, tools and equipment that we require on site, and the development of the homes. So our program staff is coordinating with RLACF staff on the applicant pipeline, which is significant right now in Red Lodge. And quite a bit of that work is on developing a increasing the financial well-being of individuals and families so that they can be prepared for home ownership. Because all of our builders take on a mortgage of some kind that matches their income. So preparing, increasing credits, paying off debt, consolidating debt, and getting ready for the sweat equity component of the work is a key partnership that Helena Habitat has with the foundation. And we couldn't do it without that support of the local community and the foundation jumping in with that. Trust Montana is then working with us. They're going to be actually holding the land for a 75-year ground lease. And that way we can ensure that these homes, once constructed, will be permanently affordable. If any of the homeowners end up deciding people's lives change these days, jobs happen, family challenges happen, and moving is a factor of life. But if ever the homes are sold, Trust Montana will work with the homeowner to ensure that it gets transferred to another homeowner who matches the income requirements of the home. So the existing homeowner, the families who are building with us, will be able to leave the home, sell the home, having built up equity, paying off part of the principal, and taking on some of that sweat equity and moving it forward. but then a new homeowner can be in place that is still in the income requirements for the program. So Trust Montana is ensuring the permanent affordability of the home. Habitat is facilitating the build process and ensuring the homes get constructed and built according to local requirements and building requirements. And Red Lodge Area Community Foundation is helping to facilitate the entire operation, the community engagement, as well as the applicant pipeline and processes.
Yeah, it's been a phenomenal partnership, and it's amazing how much you've gotten done in such a short period of time. And it's my understanding that you have enough lots. Is that 3 years of building or 2 more years of building?
Yeah, I think that would be a good 2 to 3 years. It depends on where we go. I think that we could definitely see 3 years of development work up there, but it depends on the need of the community and what we're able to find as far as applicants, and whether or not we take on some, different projects to what's typically Habitat and potentially developing maybe a rental property moving forward. So there's quite a few different avenues to go, but the current land, I think 2 years is a safe estimate. 3 years is definitely possible, depending on how the program continues.
And the solar, is that an addition in Red Lodge, or are you doing that on most of the houses that you're building?
That's a great question. We like to make all of our homes solar ready. We haven't been able to make that work with the costs associated with building the homes yet and still keeping them financially affordable. And, we have a challenge just with what's happened in Montana with the building industry. It's statewide. Next year, our building costs are going to increase about $25,000 a unit, and that's just in material costs. It's been an absolutely crazy year for the building trades, and materials are hard to come by, and they're very expensive. Building is taking off like never before. So we've always tried to make solar work on our projects, and building homes very quality, durable, and energy efficient is absolutely one of our key values, because it's one thing to have an affordable mortgage, but if you can't afford to pay the utility bill, it really doesn't matter. So it's important that we build energy efficient homes. And it's been really exciting to put together not only the land trust model, but also solar homes that have solar on them that are going to keep those homes so incredibly affordable for the long term. So if we could add that to every project, we would. Solar costs are coming down, so we're going to see as we move forward if that's something that we can incorporate. But unfortunately, with the work that we do, it's always a balance between the quality of construction, the energy efficiency, and just the costs of doing things.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I do know that we have a local committee that is working with you on the regular basis on making these house builds possible. One of the parts of the committee, I know that they've started some initial conversations in the community to start to explore the long-term rental situations. And so we're really glad to have you a partner in those conversations and help lead the way on that. I was wondering if maybe we have a couple of minutes, if you could also give us a sneak peek about the youth build program that we did some initial conversations with the school district in the new career tech building.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I'm really happy about this happening. We need more trade schools across Montana, and emphasis in encouraging folks to think about alternate options for careers. And the trades is something that's so necessary. There's a lack of skilled tradespeople who can join us in building housing. So we really encourage youth to consider all their options when considering a future career. And so thrilled to have trades to be a part of Red Lodge School District's priorities. In Helena, we have Youth Build, where we take, it's usually at-risk youth. Many of them have dropped out of school and are getting a chance to get their high school equivalency, and then they get training in the trades by working with Habitat. And Red Lodge is a little bit different, and I'm really thrilled to have that vocational education component joining us on the build side. And it sounds like it's going to happen this coming fall, where they'll be able to come out and learn carpentry, home building, They're going to learn about energy efficient design in construction, and they will be active participants in the build process on the next stage of the homes. So that is a really exciting development, a really wonderful and additional partnership, in addition to all these great partners working together to have the school district involved in that is just remarkable.
Well, thank you so much for really exhibiting on all the different ways that we can partner. And it's sort of speaks to when one door closes, another door can open, and how when we all work together, it's just the possibilities are endless. And you're a real inspiration and you bring so much to our community. Thank you for your work here.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks for joining us also today. All right. Well, I am happy, and Martha will be extremely happy. We love it when we can stop a little early instead of go over. So she, as my mentor, we're living up to that today. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us and sort of speak about how the foundation's doing, how the community is doing, and that we are here. And 2020 came out pretty good when you think about, even though it was so hard, it came out pretty good for most of us. There's a lot of suffering and things that, you know, I can't speak to at this meeting for people, a lot of isolation and things that we're going to be working and addressing in the recovery portion of the pandemic. But the fact that we're community strong and we relied on one another through all of these things and worked together before a pandemic, I think it made during the pandemic somewhat better as far as how we could respond to it. And so that was really one of the foundation's definitions when we chose resilient community as part of our mission, is making sure that we're working together during the good times. So when the tough times come, we already have the infrastructures involved and created so that we can cross over and address the needs that are here. So I just want to thank everyone that made that possible. There's so many people that we work with in our communities, and there's so many formal and informal partnerships. We are all truly blessed. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to working together again through everything in 2021 and the future.